So first and foremost, read my lips. The person who is making changes is responsible for the trauma/tension/conflict it is introducing into the relationships. Yes, you heard me say that. Let's try to understand why people who are not raised observant become more observant. In some cases, it can be traced to something dramatic, tragic, midlife crisis, trip to Israel. But just as often, there is no discernible trigger, no dramatic tipping point. Life happens. Sometimes very slowly, sometimes more quickly. A Jewish woman, a Jewish man of any age might begin to gravitate towards Jewish learning and observance. And the reason we're here this morning to discuss this is because this happening, often enough, brings at least a modicum of friction into the family. First of all, there's this indictment. Why are you doing this? Where did you hear this mishuganous stuff? Which rabbi or rebbitzin is brainwashing you? That's my favorite. And what kind of Kool-Aid exactly are you drinking? So first we have to understand that the return of the Jew to tradition, to observance, is actually the most natural thing in the world. The prophet Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu Hanavi, he called it. He called us cuckoo birds. Now you also know why we're so crazy. That's why the word for becoming more in line with our core is called teshuvah, which means to return. To return does not mean to reform, to recant, to redress, to repent. Teshuvah means none of those things. It simply means to return to our default setting. Like the cuckoo bird, we just know our song. It can be, however, very annoying, mystifying, even scary, and worrisome when a spouse or a child or a parent becomes more observant, when they change. But it needs to be understood that unless there is something profoundly dysfunctional at the outset about the relationship, and just as profoundly fraudulent about the relationship with God, they are not doing it to be malicious, to create a power struggle, to stir up the hornet's nest, to get anyone's goat. Truly, when a Jew returns to their nest, it's because they can't help the overwhelming draw they feel in that direction. When those stirrings begin, they are almost impossible to ignore. Now you might ask, why one person over another? That's a good question with no good answer. That is a fantastic answer, but not one we can wrap our brains around. That's what God decided for that person. You could call it a gift. But first, we have to understand this fact about our song. In fact, the Talmud teaches that each Jewish child is taught this song in its entirety in utero, so that when it hears it, it's not for the first time. There's a familiarity. There's a deep resonance about it. We are also taught that each soul must take an oath before it descends into this world, that it will be righteous and not trespass the song. Why each person's life unfolds so differently is a composite of 100 million factors, nature, nurture, but this essential truth about the relationship of the Jew and the Torah is inviolable. It's embedded. But it does not mean that the process of becoming more observant is easy. The process of becoming more observant is hard, excruciatingly difficult on almost every level. Among the most annoying comments people make are comments like, some people, they like to be religious because they never have to think about what they're going to do. Or some people just need a program that lays it all out for you. Now, this is just a newer iteration of religion is a crutch for the weak, the opiate of the masses. Actually, it takes tremendous internal strength to follow the Torah and buck the tide. Now, here's the truth. If one is conditioned in the tradition of observance from a young age, it's immeasurably easier. If one begins later in life, it takes the fortitude of a warrior, a giant. They say that the loudest noise in the world is the breaking of one habit. The Baal or Baalat Teshuvah, the returnee, has to break millions of habits. So weak? I really don't think so. Strong? Very. And honestly, and this is the truth, sometimes when I brush my teeth in the morning, I don't want to look in the mirror. I try to avoid my face because I am so fortunate and blessed to be able to teach Torah every day and to watch people taking small steps and large steps in the direction of greater observance. And probably because God knew that I wouldn't have the fortitude to find it on my own, I was born into this. But what have I done to break a habit? And where do I get the chutzpah to be talking to other people about this? The people around the people who are gravitating towards observance, the people they love most in their entire life, are often upset, confused, bewildered, irate, disturbed, and sometimes nothing less than furious. Who is this person they thought they knew? So let's get down to a little bit more details and understand the specific ways in which this teshuvah process is upsetting, worrisome, and downright scary to family members. And then let's outline what we can do to assuage the tensions that arise. Now, here's an important qualifier. Anytime you talk about people, it has to be with tremendous respect for just how different we all are, and therefore how many permutations and variances there will be for each relationship. Each person, each family has their own culture, each person has their own triggers, a different set of emotional coping, different expectations from life, from each other, and so on and so forth. So we're going to continue to keep this in mind, because this is not one size fits all, but still in all, I think it's possible to identify certain recurring themes. And the way I'm going to do it this morning is by referencing the mystical idea that there are 5 substrata to what we call the soul. There is something called nephesh. This aspect of the soul vivifies all matter. If something is alive, it has a nephesh. In humans, this level deals with the biological. In a romantic relationship, I would say to my students, this is the aspect that deals with physical attraction. The next level of the soul is called ruach. This is the aspect of the soul that gives rise to our emotions. Again, in a relationship, this is what we would call emotional compatibility. For our purposes, let's deal with these 2 first levels, nephesh and ruach, together. Many of the first challenges that arise in a relationship between one who is becoming more observant and their family members fall into these categories, nephesh and ruach. What does it look like? There's fear, there's repulsion, there's concern about, for starters, what this person might look like eventually. There may be a negative association with observant individuals, certain stereotypes they don't want anything to do with. Shame that someone in their family could adopt a lifestyle so archaic and bizarre. Apprehension, how this will affect eating habits, weekends, vacations. On the emotional level, there are even more profound issues. In the case of a child becoming more observant, I think the hardest thing for parents is the fear that they grapple with, the fear that they will be rejected, that this child is going to never come home. There is the stinging hurt that the child has turned their back on the lifestyle they were raised with to embrace another. There is fear of what the child will lose in terms of their own eventual prospects by adopting this lifestyle. So in the case of a spouse, it's a little bit different. There might be confusion or even inability to understand what triggered these changes and real upset, even anger, that the spouse is not the person they married. They changed all the rules midstream. And this might just be the most difficult dynamic of all. In the case of two spouses, both interested, but one is progressing more quickly than the other, there's a whole set of issues on this level of Nephesh and Ruach. Why do you have to be so strict? Why are you so anal? Are you OCD? We don't have to go all the way. We don't have to look like them. Yeah, Shabbat dinner, that's good. In the case of parents who are becoming more observant and have grown children, you have many of these same issues. You have confusion, shock, anger that the rules are being changed, shame, what will my friends think? And also, how do I return these parents and get a normal set? Okay. The third level of the soul is called Nishama. This is the aspect of the soul that deals with cognitive faculties. In a relationship, you would call this intellectual compatibility. Pursuant to our discussion this morning, this is where people will get into discussions and arguments about the tenets of faith, articles of belief that seem to conflict with modern thought. So we have our favorites, the biblical story of creation versus evolution, the divine origin of the Bible, the veracity of the rabbinic tradition, and all kinds of ritual observances and laws and details. This is a difficult part. And then you have Haya. Haya is the fourth level, and this deals with the spiritual compatibility of conviction, vision, and beliefs. Goes without saying, we have a problem in that department. Finally, the highest level of the soul is called Yechida. That's the transcendent aspect of the soul that is completely unified with its creator. This level lies at the heart of the tension, but the good news is this is where the resolution lies as well. So now let's talk practically about what can be done to try to dial down the tension and the fears and to make this process less painful for everyone involved. So first and foremost, read my lips. The person who is making changes is responsible for the trauma/tension/conflict it is introducing into the relationships. Yes, you heard me say that. It's true, this person has a lot on their plate. They have all kinds of internal and external struggles. They might have a struggle every time they walk past McDonald's. They have a new language to get used to, all this gibberish, hundreds and thousands of cultural nuances to master, an endless sea of knowledge to learn, but yes, they are still responsible to keep the peace, otherwise known as Shalom Bayit. It's marvelous when the family makes it easy, but that is not always the case. So I will try to share some simple but profoundly important things for the person who's becoming more observant, the Baal Tshuva in gestation to keep in mind. Number one, concentrate on your relationship with God, not anyone else's relationship with God. In plain English, it's none of your business. Nurse absolutely no hope or aspiration that those around you will become observant. Maintain zero expectation. Do not get on your moral high horse, camel, or donkey, evoking God as being in your corner and getting all obnoxious. On the contrary, this is the time to become the most caring, considerate, sensitive spouse, child, or parent in the world. Yes, there may be real upset with how you are dressed or what you are no longer eating, playing, doing, but if you are respectful, if you bend over backwards to accommodate and to compensate, it will go a long, long way. Hint, do not change your name on your parents. Don't. And don't be like, oh, well, if you're going to call me Josh, I'm not going to be responding anymore. I'm Yehoshua. Oh, right, like I didn't name you. And I don't know that your name is Yoshua, but you've been Josh for 22 or 26 years, okay? You can be Josh for another 120 years to your parents if that's what they want you to be. So if they, used to be, people didn't have cell phones. So parents would call yeshiva X, Y, or Z, ask to speak to Josh, and hear, Ephraim Moshe Menashe. And they were like, OMG, I better get on the first plane and get to Israel, and an extraction is, not even an intervention is what we need to do. So yes, your change in lifestyle is a lot to ask of those around you. And your job is to show that Judaism is not distorting your personality, but on the contrary, makes you more thoughtful, kind, considerate, and balanced. Did I mention balance? Don't go nuts, like changing everything in one day. First of all, it never lasts that way. Slow, easy, consistent. Now, the Nephesh level, not going to be happy at all. It may take months or years to accept your kippah, your skirt, your new diet, your new taste in music, but you will be calming the storm in the emotive department if they can see that you have not become another person, a non-accepting, judgmental, closed-minded, fundamentalist monster. It's very important, this is in my notes, bold. It's very important not to throw everything about your former life away. If somebody tells you to throw everything away, don't ever go to classes with them again. Your intellectual interests, your hobbies, your distinctive personality. This is not some woke, like, you be you mantra. This is God saying, I created you as you. Oh, you want to improve on my creation? Oh, okay, I thought I was the creator of the universe, but apparently you are. No. Remember, on this Ruach, emotional level, there is no logic to employ, okay? Remember. Logic is not the conduit. It's not a good idea to engage in polemics and debates. Resist the urge to foist all of your newfound knowledge on your nearest and dearest, maybe especially adolescent-aged children if you're the parent who has become more observant. Remember that it may take a long, long time, but the only thing that can help sometimes is time. In Hebrew, we have this wonderful expression, Ma sheyaseh hazman lo yaseh hasechel. What time will do, intellect will not do. With time, hopefully, if you behave, they will learn that you're still the same you, a better version of you. But you have to give it time. During this period of time, before there's any acceptance of the new you, while there is still the hope that it's a passing phase, and that hope, it's a very strong hope, or the anger of the annoyance you have become, or both, you have to do two things at the same time. And this is like walking a trapeze simultaneously. You do have to compromise as much as halachically and humanly possible. Don't expect other people to make changes to accommodate your new needs. You find every possible dispensation within the rubric of Jewish law. And at the same time, stay your course with determination. At times, it will feel like everyone is against you. Your closest relatives, your extended family, your no longer friends, your coworkers and acquaintances, probably your non-Jewish coworkers, will be not only the most curious, but the most supportive. Embrace that. We'll talk about why that is. But remember to see the other side. Looking up at the sun is a different experience for the person with sunglasses and a hat than it is for the person that's looking without sunglasses. So what to you is exciting and wonderful, and you're basking in the rays and the light and the heat and the warmth, for them, they're getting blinded by the sun, it's a major nuisance, and they're getting a headache. When things get tough and you're feeling especially lonely, okay, this is really important. Don't make the mistake of making your newfound teachers and mentors your new spouse, parents, kid. You only have one spouse, the one God gave you. Only one set of parents, only one set of children. The creator of the universe gave you these people and gave you to them, and don't abandon them, even when you are tempted. I'm not talking about real dysfunction or danger. Your teachers and mentors are going to be hugely important at this stage in your life. They are your guides. God gave them to you for that purpose, because you're essentially a stranger in a strange land. But I beg of you, run the other way if your mentors and guides don't stress the importance of maintaining peace and respect. If they don't help you find a lenient way to go about things and keep urging you to become more strict and more disruptive on your family dynamic, if they lean on you to make changes more quickly than you feel is healthy, run, don't walk away. And no matter what you do, don't put these people on a pedestal. People placed on pedestals will always fall. The higher the pedestal, the more pieces they will break into. These people are very likely wonderful, giving, knowledgeable, and they can help you and guide you, but they are people, they are not saints, they are not angels, they have flaws, they have shortcomings, they have warts, they have foibles. Remember that. I warned you beforehand. Now, some words to the parents of budding Baalei Tshuva. Anybody in this room have a child who's becoming more observant? What's your name?
Bill.
Bill. Hold on to your seat. Your children could be choosing any lifestyle at all, Bill. Any. Believe me. Of all the choices out there, this is the only one that legislates. Let me make that more clear. In Judaism, it's not the 10 suggestions, it's the 10 commandments. So if your kid is becoming more observant, they're actually beginning to take certain things very seriously. All of a sudden, they're going from a postmodern situation where, hey, you be you, well, whatever it takes, man, whatever's your truth, right? They're going to a place where there are actually truths, and then there are things that are not true at all. So this is a lifestyle that legislates honoring parents, actually rising every time a parent comes in the room, never calling the parent by the first name, never asking your parent to pass the ketchup. And who do you think you are to tell your parents, oh, you're going to be on that block anyway, pick up my dry cleaning? Not in this religion. It legislates taking care of parents in their old age, not warehousing them. It legislates marrying, having children, feeding the poor, healing the sick. Can you see what I'm saying? It's a horrible, horrible lifestyle. To the spouse of someone who's more observant than they are, yes, this is unfair to you. But remember this, it's essentially, what's happening here is that your spouse has a stirring to come back to the nest. It's not a feeling they can massage away at whim. It may not be fear, but it's uncomfortable for you, but the other way is uncomfortable for them. They're not doing this to diss you. They're not doing this to upset you. They're not doing this because it's a power struggle. So if they want to wear a kippah or eat kosher, I get it. It can make the spouse uncomfortable. But do they deserve a chance to be comfortable or to live their life? So it's tricky. Let's go to the Nishama, the intellectual level. When you are challenged by family members with questions, and there's going to be a million questions. This is not the game of 20 questions. This is the game of 20 million questions. Remember, you can't possibly know everything you need to know. So right now, take a deep breath and take the pressure off of yourself. Hopefully, you have the brains to know who to ask. Reserve the right to change your position. There are numerous opinions on certain issues. So just because one teacher says something, there may be somebody who says something else. So if you tell your parents something, and then you hear a much better explanation, that's okay. The Torah is deeper than the sea, wider than the universe. It takes 1,000,000 lives to begin to understand just a thimbleful of Torah. So if you're becoming more observant, don't live with the pressure that you're supposed to have every answer. Don't feel like you have to be the world specialist on every matter. You have to explain to your relatives, to your friends, to your parents, that this is a journey, it's a process, you know very little, you will likely know very little for the rest of your life, things may change, and you will keep them posted. So they should prepare for inconsistency as it manifests. The other thing is you have to remember that there are many issues that cannot be thrashed out on the level of intellect. Some things you just have to live to understand. It's like, I'm going to go try to explain to you the beauty of music. No, you have to hear it. So it's almost impossible for this to be an intellectual conversation. It's okay to allow time to work its magic. And above all, do not be your family's teacher. Certainly not your parents. Unless they specifically ask you, teach only by example. Here is the most important thing that has to be understood. Judaism is God-centered. We're all used to living in a me-centered universe. Once that is finally recognized, once that sinks in, almost everything else becomes commentary. Okay, on the level of Haya, spiritual compatibility, it may at first blush appear that there is no strategy in this department, no perspective that will bridge the gap. The Baal Tshuva is becoming observant, the parents, spouse, children are secular. How are they ever going to find common ground? In the case of children, it's important for them to know, but to really know, okay? This is not about mouthing words. To really understand and convey to your parents so that they appreciate that the choices you are making in significant measure come from the core values they inculcated in you. They nourished and nurtured within you a yen for depth, a love for goodness and truth, a desire to live meaningfully. And yes, your iteration thereof looks a little bit different, but if there's anything good about you, it's because of them. For spouses, it's important to remember again, okay, it's true, I became observant, and I know it's really creating a situation of disequilibrium. But maybe you can think back to why you married me. Maybe you married me precisely because of my desire to look beneath the surface, the ability to be disciplined, to be courageous and not necessarily go with the flow. If it's your children that are stuck in this quagmire, remind them that you are still the parent you always were. Things are just, you're seeing things a little bit differently now. But in terms of priorities in your life, they are your priority. They are where you want to put your passion. Everything that was always most important in your life, in their life, in your life together, especially your love for them, none of that has changed. Finally, we come to the Yechida level of the soul. This is the level of the soul that Hasidus teaches we access, every one of us, on Yom Kippur, specifically during that last prayer called Ne'ilah, which everybody thinks is Latin for let's eat bagels, but actually means to close or lock up. And why is it called Ne'ilah? Because it's the prayer service with which we lock up the day of Yom Kippur. But Hasidus teaches it's the time we are locked in complete unity with God. That's the 5th prayer of the day. Yom Kippur is the only day that has 5 prayers. It has 5 prayers because every prayer parallels another aspect of the soul. And on Yom Kippur, on that 5th prayer, that aspect of our soul shines in untrammeled fashion. This is the essence of the soul, which is naturally and immutably bound to God above. The other time Hasidus teaches us when we access that aspect of the soul is when we do something with self-sacrifice. The ability to do what God wants us to do, although it's not easy, although you might have to sacrifice your life, or it might even be harder in 2022 to sacrifice your desire for something that God wants of you, that comes from the Yechidah. This is the level of soul revealed at the moment of self-sacrifice, of martyrdom, but also when you eat Rice Krispies instead of a cheeseburger. Now, this transcendent level is why your becoming observant is so difficult and so discomforting and so anger-inducing to your family and so very interesting to your non-Jewish friends and acquaintances who think you are so cool while your family is just trying to find a crater they can sink into and then let the earth swallow on top. But this is the level we have to keep in mind constantly. It's what defines us all. No matter if we're conscious of this or believe in it or not, it's what binds us and is ultimately why, again, barring dysfunction and a conflicted relationship in which religion is only one spoke in the whole wheel, in many cases, not all, but in many, many cases, things are going to work out. Bali Teshuvah, people becoming more observant, who go about this process with respect for their families and love and honesty, almost always become closer to their families, even if they have to eat on their own dishes at Thanksgiving and bring their own food. And I want you to know that for some mothers, not this one, but for some mothers, if you don't eat their food, you might as well just put a knife through their heart. So this is a big deal. And don't be somewhere like on a Torah convention on Thanksgiving. Be with your family because everybody's coming. And be respectable. It takes a lot of work, and the process is never really over.
If you like that video, hit the subscribe button and notification bell below for hours of the best Jewish content online.